Welcome. Today we have as our guest Christine Carr and Dr. Michael Brown, and we're going to be discussing the Melson Menace marijuana law. I was in a political forum in Athens last week, and I questioned Dr. Melson about his medical marijuana bill, saying that I didn't think it was medical marijuana at all because it was not dispensed by pharmacies. And he said that I should stick to what I know and let him do the doctoring. So I have some people today to discuss this who have some medical knowledge that I don't have. So Christine, what would you say that Melson really brought us?
Melson did not bring a true medical cannabis program. He brought in legalized pot with restrictions.
And Dr. Brown, could you comment, please?
Well, I think the problem is that people, have a perception when they hear the word medical that, this is something that a physician would be doing, but physicians don't prescribe, products that are just really what I would call botanical or whatever, that haven't really been processed in a way where you know exactly what you're prescribing. I mean, a physician is going to prescribe a certain dosage amount of something that he knows what he's giving the patient and can make judgments as to the effect. And so this is really not medicine. That's the critical thing here that's being foisted on the public. They think, well, this is something medical, but it really isn't. You
And
can't
I'm also
really prescribe it that way.
I agree, Dr. Brown. I think one thing that is always disconcerting is that when someone wants to bring up an issue that's concerning to them, and then they get shut down by saying, let me do the doctoring, that's usually not good medical practice. And there is a simple way of learning the differences between some of these issues. We actually have real, true medical cannabis already. There are FDA approved medications that are based off of either pure CBD or the THC, this psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. And there are about 4 of them. We're hoping to get some other versions of them. They're called nabiximols to help with some types of neuropathic pain. It's approved in Europe. We're waiting on the FDA to get that. But those are actual medicines that a physician can prescribe. Dr. Brown could prescribe that, and a patient can pick that up in a pharmacy, and insurance will cover it. And they have been designed for certain treatment-resistant seizures. They can be used off-label for pain or for tremor issues related to multiple sclerosis. They're designed for the problems that you have with cancer-related nausea or lack of appetite, or the problems you have with AIDS patients. So there's already those medicines out there. What this is doing is bringing in whole plant marijuana. Now, granted, it's not the leafy stuff that you're smoking, but it is taking the plant and extracting it down and getting all of the hundreds and hundreds of chemicals that are involved in that plant. And we have no idea all of the different drug interactions that you have with every single chemical. We have an idea of some, but not all of them yet. So that's a big difference. And this product, this marijuana product, will be sold in what they call dispensaries. So you go to a cannabis certified doctor who is a licensed doctor in Alabama, and they took some 4-hour course. They became certified. You can go to that doctor, and if your conditions meets that list, then you can have a recommendation for marijuana. You take that recommendation to the commission, and then you get your card, and you take your card with you to the dispensary or the pot shop to pick up your product. That is what Melson brought us. Dr. Brown, anything you want to add?
Well, like I say, this is, we've had this available. I've prescribed the THC, but there's really not any reason to go and get it this other way. And so I don't see the purpose in doing that, except to benefit people who would be selling it and growing it. The patient's not gaining any additional benefit by doing it this way instead of using a physician to prescribe it in a known quantity from a pharmacy. So there's really nothing gained there to have this product that has all these different things in it that you don't really know or can't quantify about the amounts and the effects. So that's really foreign to the way that you normally would practice medicine.
I questioned Dr. Melson in that Athens forum. I said that medical marijuana was available through pharmacies before this bill passed, before it became law. And he said, no, that's not true. Is that true? You could get medical marijuana from pharmacies before this bill. Is that correct?
Well, it's not medical marijuana, it's actual medicine, like we just talked about.
Yes, it's derived from
the known components are related to marijuana, but it's a specific phytochemical that's in marijuana, not just this whole plant product.
Right.
I'm so sorry about that, John. I unfortunately, I had high hopes when I first met Senator Melson last year when speaking out against this proposed law. I came to him with tears in my eyes and I said, pull this bill, let's work together, let's come up with something much safer. He said, I can't do it, it's too late, we have to move on. And I really hoped this past year that he would be someone to work with. The major problems that exist in this law currently, I brought this to the attention of many lawmakers. Even Will Ainsworth said he really liked my top 10 list, but just please try to work with Senator Melson. And we went to Senator Melson with these ideas. And it's just that same kind of attitude that you received apparently at that Athens forum. He was very flippant.
Yes.
And in front of me and two other witnesses, he said, I will not lift a finger to do any of this. And I said, you won't even do anything to help protect the unborn, because right now in this law, we have nothing else from the commission. We have nothing else from the Alabama Medical Board. Right now in this law, it will be fairly easy for pregnant women to get marijuana and expose their children. And there's documented dangers. They said, you won't even do that. And he would not lift a finger even for the unborn. And then he put the blame at the feet of the governor because the governor doesn't want to.
Yeah.
And I said, but you're the doctor. Even though you're a retired physician, you should be able to guide her. And he just shrugged his shoulders and just went on to another topic. I was pretty dismayed by that even in this conservative pro-life state, we could not get a pro-life bill passed.
One of his campaign pledges on the literature that he mailed out is that he will protect the unborn without exception. And when I called him on this marijuana bill, he just shrugged his shoulders and talked about something else.
I'm sure it's hard, because I know I'm sure he has a lovely family and everything else, but this is very concerning. And it almost just really just left me speechless and very, very sad. And I've been told by many others that have tried to work with him all the way up to the Attorney General's office, that if Senator Melson disagrees with you, he will either try to treat you as if you're not intellectually up to his standards, I'll say that, I guess, or mock you or divert and change the subject. And I have seen that behavior in him. I've seen him make medically dangerous statements in front of the House Health Committee, something that I would immediately not allow being done to my patients. And he has been caught by other people, conservative pro-life groups, and speaking falsehoods to them. regarding issues on protections for the unborn. So for those people in District 1, I am very sorry about this, but I have to tell you unequivocally, when it came to protecting the unborn on this issue, he refused to help, and he did everything he could in the Senate to block that bill from even getting to the floor.
Could you tell us what we've seen in other states that have passed a marijuana law?
Out of so far, as far as I know, 37 states that have enacted medical marijuana programs, about half of them have then gone full recreational with medical. Now, take note, even though a state may have what we would call recreational marijuana program, people still like to have their medical card. And the reason that they like that is because it is a lower tax bracket. So they still go to the same pot shop. They still purchase the same substance that they could purchase as a recreational, but they like to use their medical because they get a lower tax rate. It is the same substance. And that's essentially what we will be having here as well when we're talking about the marijuana versus true medical cannabis. Now, granted, Alabama is, I think, much better than other states as far as legislation. One good thing is that it was passed by a legislature and not by a full state vote. Usually those state referendums end up with much looser laws, such as we've seen in Oklahoma and some other states. It's just like the Wild West. Colorado, California, they get it put into their state constitution, which is even harder to deal with. But we still have some pretty bad loopholes. So what we do see in states over time is that with any states that are measuring substance abuse related to child abuse deaths, child deaths either to abuse or neglect, marijuana is the #1 substance involved. There is also some very good research that's coming out associating the rates of autism on the rise in states that have looser marijuana laws. Scientists started to make the connection a few years ago, and now it's becoming so strong, they're shifting from just saying correlation to actual causation. And even when men use it, when young men are using marijuana, being chronically daily exposed to THC, it doesn't have to be smoked, it just has to be consumed in some form, that it causes epigenetic changes to their sperm, which can be passed on to the children, increasing the risk of autism and other behavioral disorders. So it's not just the mom that uses in utero, it's the father. It's a generational situation that we see. We do see over time worsening opioid addiction rates and deaths. That dispels the myth that using marijuana can reduce the opioid crisis. Over time, it does not. It actually makes people crave opioids more. It reduces their pain tolerance. We are seeing major failures in almost every state over time for regulatory oversight. Not one single state has done a good job at testing, evaluating, keeping up with the business. We actually see more illegal grows. And what we've seen in states like Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, California, Oregon, Washington, and others, not just more illegal grows, but illegal grows done by Chinese mafia, Russian mafia, and mafias from south of the border. There is a real estate boom in Oklahoma right now. By the way, Oklahoma has more pot shops than churches now. There is a real estate boom in Oklahoma of foreign nationals coming in to be involved with their medical marijuana program. The money is good, and they like to be involved with that. So that is what we see in states. So I can say with the international experts that I work with, such as with the International Academy on the Science and Impact of Cannabis, they are very clear in saying that no state has benefited financially, public safety-wise, or even health-wise by having a quote-unquote medical marijuana program. And of the studies that have been done to look at cost benefit ratios, the cost is 4.5 to 1. So for every tax dollar you bring in, it's estimated a cost of 4.5 times that. That might be a little excessive. I could see 2.5 times easily, but the societal costs are there. And no state, nobody in government makes things better in their community. So that's what we have. We've seen in other states. Dr. Brown, anything you'd like to add?
No, I mean, that's kind of what we're seeing is that all these problems that occur in other states are going to be brought here. I mean, yeah, like you said, the law had some improvements that compared to some other states, but it's certainly not what we need here in Alabama, that's for sure.
Dr. Brown, could you and Christine tell us a little bit about yourselves and your medical background? Dr. Brown?
Sure. So I'm a physician that's been in practice for over 40 years, and I've been involved in medical research and public policy and drug and alcohol rehab. I definitely have an interest in these subjects and patient care. And the other thing, though, is it's very personal to me because my oldest son was affected by marijuana very early on, which is what the problem that Christine and I have been talking about is early exposure. And he became addicted and then had dealt with that for many years, eventually succumbed to addiction at age 38. And this is not a unique story. I've met many parents across our state, across the nation even, and going to the various programs that we took our son who came in the same way through exposure to marijuana early on. And they went down this pathway of addiction. So yes, it's true. There's always those good old boys that can get away with this kind of thing and not end up like my son did. But it's certainly Russian roulette, and it's at least a 1 in 6 type scenario for sure, where you expose young people to this, they're going to end up like my son did with addiction and many die.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Christine?
I have to interject that Dr. Brown is very, very humble. He is an amazing physician. He works himself to the bone to help so many people. I'm sure there would just be people lining up around the block to just sing his praises. So I hope I didn't embarrass you there, Dr. Brown, but you're just an amazing man. Thank you so much for all you do for people. And I do have to also say that with Dr. Brown's story and so many other stories of parents that have buried children or seen their children's lives ruined by addiction with marijuana being involved, the cannabis lobby or industry will dismiss it and say, oh, that was recreational. That's not the same thing. That wasn't due to medical. And please understand, as we were talking about before, this is the same substance. It is the THC, it is the whole plant and its chemicals. And there are many, many stories of parents who have lost their children who at 19 or 20 got their medical cards, and they in a short period of time developed either addictions or psychoses and committed suicide. So please don't let anyone dismiss another parent's suffering and their story by saying, oh, well, that doesn't count because that was just recreational. It's the same thing. And I believe every person's story counts. I believe the story of the parent of children with epilepsy, that counts. And I care about their needs. But I also ask that they also in the cannabis industry cares about the people who have suffered from this drug. All right, about myself. I am a board certified registered nurse anesthetist. I've been taking care of patients for 27 years, a lot of trauma, a lot of critical care, and just sometimes your basic general run of the mill anesthesia. I got started in this a little over a year ago. I assumed Alabama was safe from this kind of nonsense. I wasn't really paying attention that much until I heard from a friend that it was coming through our legislature in 2021. I was shocked because at that point in time, all of us in the medical community were just still reeling from COVID and trying to do our best to take care of people with COVID. And I thought, this is the best that our governor and our legislature can do, is try to push through marijuana when we're really suffering out here. So I got involved. It was after it passed through the Senate, and I got involved in time to speak at the House Health Committee and initially see Senator Melson in action and to see that kind of the fix was in. Dr. Brown and I met shortly after the bill was passed. It's been about a year now, when we were trying to convince Governor Ivey to veto this bill based on some of the dangerous loopholes that exist in it. Dr. Brown came down to Montgomery to be one of the physicians and grieving parents to speak at that press conference in front of the State House. That was the year anniversary is going to be May 13th of that, Dr. Brown. I don't know if you remember. But unfortunately, the governor did sign it. She ignored all of our requests and suggestions for good amendments. When we realized that she was not going to veto and sign it, we asked her to please consider the amendments that we sent her. She looked at them and she ignored everyone. So since then, I've just been this non-paid volunteer while trying to work and live family and raise my kids and homeschool and do all the other things to educate people across the state about the truth of this subject, to warn people, and to also let people know that they do have some power in their local communities. You are automatically opted out from having a dispensary in your city or your county. You cannot get a pot shop or a dispensary unless your city council or your county commissioners vote to have one in. So
Okay,
far,
so that local approval is already in the bill, is that right?
correct. So that's a nice, a good, true conservative representative out of the Homewood area. Was able to get that put into the bill at the last minute, which I think was a miracle. So everybody locally, you have to be on top of your city council and your county commissioners to make sure that they don't fall for the money and fall for the sales pitch and say, yes, we want one. Right now, Montgomery City is the only one that has officially opted in.
So that explains why Melson has excluded his ag authority property from all city zoning and local laws. It is I think it is identified as a government entity unto itself. So that would allow them to have medical marijuana dispensaries without county approval.
Well, I'll tell you this. I did learn that, yes, after he was retired in his medical practice, that he owns a research center and a crop farm. And not once at any of our requests or have we heard him say that he was not planning on financially benefiting from this industry. He has never made that pledge. So if you would like to challenge Senator Melson and ask him to publicly pledge that neither he nor family members will get rich off of the marijuana boom, you feel free to challenge him on that. I've not yet heard anything to that regard, which also has been disappointing.
Could you share with us what law enforcement position was on the marijuana law?
Highly against. The Fraternal Order of Police issued, please don't do this. The Attorney General repeatedly, Steve Marshall over years said, please do not do this. We had last year 23 of our district attorneys across the state write a public letter saying, please do not do this. This is not going to be good for our state. And they were treated horribly in the press. I was so ashamed to see that in Alabama, our law enforcement could be mocked and disrespected the way they were. I also saw in front of my very own eyes when at the House Health Committee hearing last year, a representative on that committee wanted to bring up a rule to say that if you're going to be on this marijuana product for medical reasons, you should not be allowed to drive. That's a shocker, isn't it? I heard and saw Senator Melson scoff and then say, that's just another poison pill from the Attorney General, isn't it? And with that statement, the suggestion by that representative was shot down. So currently in the law, you can drive while on marijuana every day on this product up to 75 milligrams of marijuana every day, of THC. 75 milligrams of THC every day is when you get your license suspended. But up until that time, you can be on the roads.
Let's see. Dr. Brown, do you and Christine have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Well, I mean, just what she was just saying, I mean, we never prescribe that amount of THC when you have a prescription. So for a daily dose, I mean, that's not something we would do. So, I mean, that's just one obvious example of just how bizarre this is, that we're allowing this to happen in our state. But, you know, again, the other thing is, just as you were mentioning earlier, but, you know, these legislators that will look to get campaign contributions from the marijuana industry, you know, that's another way they can be enriched without having to actually own a marijuana farm or a pot shop. So they still get ways to get enriched with that as their, you know, their particular donors, people in the industry or whatever that are benefiting from the law, turn around and give them campaign money. So that's already been happening, and that's really very, very sad, and that just keeps them in power to continue to expand this, and with this little tiny opening for pot shops as a quote medical approach, that it can expand that much more. It's even in the law that they should be able to continue to expand to areas that are deficient and aren't getting the needs met for the amount of marijuana. I mean, that's incredible. You used to think that in the past we tried to keep our communities away from marijuana and don't want it in our communities. Now we're just in the law itself, it says, oh, we're going to study, and if there seems to be underserved areas for marijuana, we're going to be able to bring it in. I mean, it's amazing where we are to be in a quote unquote conservative Republican state, to have this kind of thing brought on our communities and our families. It's just devastating.
Dr. Brown is right. It will be devastating. He made a good point. Essentially, follow the money. And in that reference he made to the law, when the commission has the opportunity to expand the number of dispensaries across the state at their decision, they're not only looking at underserved areas for marijuana, they're also going to take in the business financial benefit to farmers and to other people. So in what is a so-called medical bill, they actually have in the language financial business considerations, which should be a red flag. It will be potentially devastating for people. It may not happen overnight, but it will happen. The perception of danger, especially in youth, will decrease. They will increase use. That is what we've seen over time in other states. And in looking at the research from various law enforcement think tanks, from the FBI, from the DEA, one scary part of all of this is that with the marijuana industry, they start to develop their own kind of mini narco state, that within a short period of time, the money that pours in and buys off your legislators, your judges, all of your other leaders, there will be no going back. And that's what we've seen in other states. They self-insulate. And I really thought that this past session would be the best time that we could get real conservatives to rise up and protect the unborn, protect the young. And already the marijuana industry has so much power in Alabama, it is frightening. The governor has been getting money, Senator Melson is getting money, many others are getting money. And it will take a miracle and a conservative revival in order to get this overturned or severely corrected. So I implore the very good, I have family members in the 1st District, and I know they're just wonderful people in your district, John, and just that they will really reconsider and think about the impact on the entire state of Alabama, on our children, on our unborn, on our family values, and really think about their vote and how it impacts everyone.
Yeah, because absolutely it will be directed by the marijuana industry. I mean, they have so much money that it just becomes almost impossible to beat them at the polls, because they can just flood the place with advertisements. They have the money they need.
And that's what you're seeing even now. So all of those mailers that you see coming in, that's probably a lot of marijuana money that's funding Senator Melson's campaign, potentially. And then we just have to think of these long-term consequences and how this impacts us.
One of the first questions that I asked Dr. Ken out in Colorado, is there a shortage of medical marijuana, that we have to grow marijuana in Alabama to
There's
fill
absolutely
our needs?
there's no shortage at all.
That was his.
Yeah, one of these things that the pot shops allow, though, is by the way they will bring it forward. It's actually even an aid to the addicts, because you can easily concentrate it so much more than having to go and do that process yourself, getting the plant yourself and doing it, because it's already partly done for you. And then it's very easy for a teenager to take that product and to process it further himself to make it much, much more concentrated. That's all readily available to youth. They know how to do that. It's very easy to find out how to do it on the internet. It's not a difficult process for them to carry it.
Well, I want to thank you two for being with us today, and I look forward to talking with you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks. God bless you and everybody in that first district. You take care.
All
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.